and welcome back to The Art Biz, where we dive deep into the business of being an artist, sharing inspiring stories and actionable insights from artists and art professionals. I'm Alyson Stanfield, and my mission on this show, as well as in all of my classes and coaching programs at Art Biz Success, is to help you elevate your art career, amplify your visibility, and connect your art to the people who matter most. If you're looking for strategies to grow your art business, market your work effectively, and take control of your career, you're in the right place. This is an encore episode from 2018. It's a conversation with Mary Erickson, a remarkable artist and equally savvy businesswoman. Mary is a painter who built her career with intention, tenacity, and a serious head for numbers. She didn't just dream about being a full-time artist. She worked methodically toward it, using every job, every sale, and every opportunity to strengthen her foundation. Her journey is one I want to revisit because it's filled with timeless lessons about making art and making a living from it. I am constantly referring people to this episode. New listeners need to hear this story, and longtime listeners need to be reminded of it. Mary reminds us that you don't need to follow anyone else's formula. You just need to pay attention to your work, your finances, your relationships, and the way you want to live. When we recorded this, Mary had 8 galleries representing her, a strong print business, and multiple income streams, including real estate investments she made with money from her art. She was also passionately building a bird sanctuary on her property in North Carolina, which has only grown in impact since then. The artist retreat she mentions is currently on hold. I hope to get Mary back on the show soon for more updates. This episode has been lightly edited from the original release to tighten the pacing, but it still contains all the rich insight and practical wisdom Mary so generously shared years ago. Whether you're early in your career or reevaluating your next move, I think you're going to find inspiration in Mary's focus, her generosity, and her belief that financial freedom gives you more room to make a difference. We begin with Mary answering my question about how she got started.
I was 29, I was turning 30, and I was panicked that I was going to be 30 years old. And so I knew that I wasn't living where I wanted to live, and I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, and I wasn't with the person I needed to be with. So I packed my van, and if I couldn't fit it in the van, I didn't take it with me. And I moved to Florida. And then I got a job in a little frame shop, and I started painting again. And so I would work during the day, 9 to 5 at the gallery frame shop. And before I went to work, I'd go to the beach and paint. And then after I left work, I'd come home and paint. I was single. I didn't have any children, so I had no other commitments so that I could make the commitment to painting. And
Were you painting before you went to Florida?
I didn't paint for 12 years. I was in a different business. So I kind of put it on a shelf and put it on hold, but knew that when I went to Florida, that's really what I wanted to do.
That's what you wanted to do. Okay. And how long were you at the frame shop?
I gave myself a goal. After 5 years, I was going to leave, and either was going to open my own gallery or I was going to continue painting full time. And it took me 7 years before I was brave enough to make the break. But I had sold, at that time, I'd started selling watercolors. And so I'd sold about 500 watercolors before I left. So I knew that there was some potential there to make a living at it.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you just kind of glazed over it. I sold about 500 watercolors.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Everyone listening is going, holy cow, that's a lot of paintings to sell. Yeah. So
I started out really small, little tiny watercolors for $50 or whatever. And then they went up from there. So it was a 5-year process of getting my feet really grounded so that I could make that break. And actually it took 7 years.
I want to talk about how you did that. But first I want to ask about, what did you learn working in the gallery, in the frame shop?
Oh, what I learned there was invaluable. The options that you had for framing, I used to deal with sales representatives that would sell prints. So I knew about things like, if you're going to make a vertical print, you should make 2 vertical prints because often they sell as pairs. And just a lot of different, if you're going to make horizontals, you make 1 large horizontal and you can make a couple of companion pieces to go with it. That was a type of thing that I knew as a salesperson in the gallery, so that I translated it into my knowledge when I went into the print business.
Wow. We don't think about those things And you probably didn't think about them either. You
I
didn't
didn't
think of,
realize, yeah, I didn't realize the education I was getting by working at the frame shop, truly.
right. So how did you sell 500 watercolors while you were working at the gallery?
I was painting, and after a couple of months, I brought in one of the paintings to the gallery owner, and she said, "Why don't you put it out in the bin? And I'll shrink wrap it and put it out in the bin." And it sold that day. So the next day I brought in another watercolor, and she said, "Well, let's do it. Put it out in the bin." Put it out in the bin. And it sold that day.
And
And
it
that
was just in a bin. It wasn't like the
in a
feature.
sales bin. No, it was just
Yeah.
in the local art, because I lived in Florida, so it was a very touristy town. So a lot of local art was desired, and that's what I was painting. So I just kind of lucked into it. Frankly, I loved to go sit on the beach and paint. I was having a great time. And then to turn it into money was an even better thing to find out. But again, I lived in a tourist town, and I painted local scenes, and that was how it happened.
Okay. So it started at the frame shop. Did you sell 500 paintings at the frame shop?
I did. And actually, it's really funny. Years later, people would come to me. I did not tell people that I was the one who painted them. I didn't want it to affect whether or not it could sell. I was testing the market in a sense. I can't be in front of every painting that I want to sell for my career. So I wanted it to be able to stand on its own. And years later, after doing the festivals and stuff, people would come to me and they'd say, "You didn't tell me that you were the one who painted that painting." I'm like, "No, I didn't tell anybody that I did." So I did, yeah, after a while I did, but initially I did not, because I really wanted to test it to make sure that it could stand on its own. It's like a child, you got to put it out there and hopefully it's grown up enough to go okay.
All right, so tell us the transition between the frame shop and the 7 years. How did you get the brave?
I ended up running the frame shop. I ended up managing it, and I worked 6 days a week, and then ultimately worked my way down to 5 days a week, and then 4 days a week, and then 3 days a week. And I still was managing it, but from a distance that way. And then
Because you were able to build up your sales outside to compensate for the money you were making at the frame shop.
It was my art sales that I was making money with, yes. And I also did calligraphy. So I also worked 20 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah, you did.
But let's see.
So what I'm asking is, you said you gave yourself 5 years at the frame shop, but it took you 7 years to be brave.
I also started entering competitions. I also sent things into like Birds in Art, and they had arts for the parks at the time. So I entered a lot of different competitions. So I was getting a little recognition that way. And it was just a very slow process. I like to eat. I didn't want to be a starving artist. I really took my time. I probably could have done it in 5, but I really wanted to be more secure. So I gave myself the extra 2 years. And once I did leave the frame shop, the gallery, and I could devote every day, every hour to it. What was amazing was my business expanded, but also my ability to paint. When you can sit in front of your easel for 10 hours a day, for 5 days a week or 6 days a week, your work just goes beyond what you had the day before. It's like anything that you do, if you do it that much. Whereas before I was only painting on the weekends, and then at night and in the mornings. And then on my days off, as I slowly transitioned down to 3 days a week, I would paint the other days. But I also had to do calligraphy. And what else? I taught cake decorating, but I did a little bit of everything until I got to the point where I knew that my paintings could sustain me. And it was really after 7 years in the gallery, but then 5 years after going full time was when I finally said, wow, I made money this year. Because it took 5 years. The first 5 years, you really have to continually reinvest and put the money back into what you're doing, whether it's applications for shows or learning or books or travel. You have to put that effort into it for 5 years and not take a whole lot out of the business until you know that you've got extra money sitting there. So if I sold a big painting, I'd buy a lot of frames. I'd make sure I had my inventory, or I'd buy canvases or whatever, or I took a workshop.
But I'm also pretty certain that you didn't rack up credit card debt, and you paid your mortgage, you bought your groceries, and you paid yourself.
Exactly.
And then you reinvested in the business for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you were selling at arts festivals?
I did. My big plan was I was going to be a gallery artist, and that's what I thought the route I was going to take. And then one weekend I borrowed a tent from a friend and did an outdoor festival and really made a lot of money. And I thought, wow, there's something to this. So I bought my own tent. And then what's really neat is that the people who do the art festivals, it's like a family. And everyone's, Mary, you should do this festival. Your work would do really well in this festival. So you listen to your peers, and then you ended up doing that. I ended up at the peak of my career, I was doing 18 shows a year, and I did it for 23 years.
Were you single still at the time?
I got married and got divorced in between all of that. Yeah. But no children also. And again, it's my focus is my career. Let's see. The way I got into the print line was also kind of interesting. Yeah. I did my first show, that's right, was not the outdoors. It was the National Audubon Society had a convention in Fort Myers, which was very close to where I was. And so I thought, I paint birds, Audubon convention, this could work. And so I set up a 6-foot table and a couple of easels, and I had my paintings out. I didn't have any prints at the time. And a couple came over to me and they looked at me and said, where have you been? And I was like, what do I say to that? It was Mike and Robin Kessler, and they were the organizers of the Florida Wildlife Festival. And they asked me if I would like to be a part of the Wildlife Festival. And I was like, yeah, I kind of hemmed and hawed, and they're like, this is like one of the biggest shows in the country right now. Why are you even thinking about it? I did the show, and I didn't sell any paintings at the Audubon convention. So that's not a good venue. But I did do the Florida Wildlife Festival and had one painting on a side wall. And every other person walked into the booth and turned to that painting and then looked at me and said, do you have a print of this? And after about 2 hours of that repeated question, I took the price tag off the painting thinking, I'm not going to sell this one right now. And I started taking orders for a print. Now I started taking deposits for a print. I had no idea how to get a print made. But I knew it was possible because I was in the business. I sold prints all the time. Yeah. Before I left that show, it was a 3-day show.
Did you know what to charge people?
I knew what to charge, again, because of the gallery experience. I had the frame shop experience. I knew what would be a reasonable price for this piece, and I would be able to make money on it also. And I had 50 orders before I left that event for this print, which is sold out. But
and how, a couple days, or?
It's a 3-day show.
3-day show. That's just hilarious. You are such an entrepreneur, and I do want to get to that in a minute. But okay, so you wanted to be a gallery artist. You started entering competitions,
and then
paying attention. You were paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you got into the print business.
Say
more about that.
That was that. Basically, I learned how to make prints. I went to Lithograph, which is a company in Georgia, drove there, brought the paintings there. They walked through the whole step. And then I found another printer for the rest of my career that I worked with for the whole 18 years. And that's Colson Printing in Valdosta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And they do everything. They take the original, they scan it, they do color corrections. And today it's a lot easier because it's all digital. When I first started, it wasn't digital. So I would go to Georgia at the press run and make color corrections with them. And it was like a 6 to 8 hour job sometimes. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
With digital, it's just so much better with digital, so much easier. Yeah. The colors are true, or it comes out more accurately than it did when we did the transition from, say, an oil painting to a 4-color separation to the photograph, then to a 4-color separation, that it was so far from the original color that I had to work towards it. But if today, it's basically you've eliminated those steps of the color correcting. It's not perfect, but you've eliminated the 4 plates, the blue, green, and yellow plates, and black plates, and you've eliminated the step where you take a photograph of the work and then you process it. Now it's all done digitally, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's also, in today's world, because now you can basically print on demand or print one at a time. The money that you could make previously is not there anymore, because a sheet of paper, a full sheet, would cost $7, and I could get 3 prints on a sheet of paper. They would retail for $125. So I could still wholesale them at $67.50 or $62.50.
And still make.
I'm still making
Yeah.
my markup, which typically it should be 10 times what it cost you
Okay.
in business to make money.
So a couple things. First, I really want to emphasize for everyone listening that the first print that you made was as a result of knowing that you could sell it multiple times. You didn't just go, I'm going to get in the print business and make 1,000 prints, because then you'd end up with them all.
They say end up in, a lot of artists have prints under their bed.
I know.
That was my test market, though. I basically was not going to do a print. I've heard that you shouldn't do prints until you cannot sell original. You can't paint fast enough.
Yeah.
Original sales. That's number one. And that tells you a couple of things. It tells you have the distribution, you have the demand. So if you're selling painting so fast that you can't keep up with them, you can still raise prices and you can't keep up, then you consider going into prints. But today it's easy to go into prints because you can print one at a time. You don't have to print 1,100 of them, which is with offset lithography. That was kind of the point, that it would cost as much to make 500 as it is to make 1,100. So you just go ahead and do the 1,100.
Yeah.
Your profitability is when the first 100 are sold, the other 1,000 is all profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not here anymore.
So it's similar to book printing as well. Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Yes. So that because of and I haven't figured out the giclée or the one print at a time as well. I don't need to, because I've really gone, my career has transitioned away from that. I do have some giclées of originals that I knew would be viable sellers, and they also were very large. And with the giclée on canvas, you can make it a lot larger than the standard 26 by 40 paper print size. And again, the market has changed and the productions have changed drastically since I've been in the print business. So it's a whole different ballgame out there now.
We're going to get back to my conversation with Mary in just a minute. She's going to tell us how she marketed her prints. This kind of career momentum, selling out of work, being invited into galleries, and creating lasting professional relationships doesn't happen by accident. It happens because artists like Mary take the business side of their art seriously. And that's exactly what I help you do inside my Essentials program. Essentials is a comprehensive program designed to help you elevate where you show your art, increase your sales, and build a solid marketing strategy that works for you. But it's not one of those programs where I just open up a vault and leave you to fend for yourself. Oh no. We have supportive coaching sessions, community conversations, live lessons, and more to keep you engaged. Whether you're seeking more visibility, stronger systems, or better alignment between your goals and your actions, Essentials is here to help you follow through. Get all the details and join me at artbizsuccess.com/essentials. That's artbizsuccess.com/essentials. You'll find the tools, structure, and community to move forward with confidence. Now, back to my conversation with Mary Erickson.
How did you market your prints? That's what I want to get.
I did through the festivals. I did the outdoor, again, 18 festivals a year. And then there used to be a wholesale show, and I think it's actually still going on in Vegas. And it's a wholesale show that was called Art Buyers Caravan. So it was basically a convention for frame shops. You could set up a booth and they came to you. So my first time selling wholesale, what I would do is pack up. I had only 3 prints initially, and I would put them in a clear sleeve, and I'd walk into a frame shop, put them on the counter and say, hi, I'm a Florida artist and I have these prints to sell. And what's really neat are some of those customers I still have as print customers today. That was like in the 1990s.
That is so cool. Okay, when did you become a gallery artist?
As I transitioned from the shows, when I started knowing that I wanted to be in galleries. First of all, my first gallery came to me. They came to my booth at a festival and said, I want to sell your work. And I said, I don't have enough work right now just to give you. And she said, what if I buy it? And I said, you can buy every one you want. And so that was my first way into a gallery. Was the gallery actually bought my work and then sold it. And then other galleries came along.
Do you know how crazy that is right now?
What? What's that? It's all being in the right place at the right time. So having what people want.
you hustle though. You're a hustler.
I work hard. I work really hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no denying that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
I
not
love what
just
I do.
luck.
So it's not, I love what I do also.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I first stopped doing the festivals, I thought, oh, this is going to be really tough because I really like talking to these folks, but I have enough to do. So
You have other people to talk with.
I have enough people to talk to.
So the gallery found you, and then
First.
yeah. So then how you now currently have how many galleries?
I have 8 galleries.
8 galleries.
I had 8 and then I had to drop one because they weren't selling that. And I couldn't paint fast enough. But last year I went into a gallery in Maine and it was a just absolutely beautiful gallery. And I showed the gallery my work and they took my work on. It was really fun because actually they took on at the end of the summer season, it was in September. And I gave them 5 paintings and they sold 3 within the first 2 weeks. So then I sent her a few more. And so that just happens.
So say more about your relationship with your galleries and how you work with them.
It's when you have a gallery, I take it on as a very big responsibility because if you realize that, okay, you're making money from your art sales, but you're also the way they make money. So you have to respect that, and you can't provide them with a lot of work and then drop off the board or the planet because you decided you want to go do something else, because they're depending on you as much as you are depending on them. And so my deal with the galleries is if they sell an 8x10, I immediately try to replace it with an 8x10. If they sell a 30x40, immediately try to replace it with a 30x40. I get in trouble if I have several galleries sell big pieces at the same time. But I've been able to kind of space them out because the galleries that I have also are in different areas and they have different seasons. So in July, my galleries in Florida and in the South are not as busy, but my galleries in New England are. So I'm able to focus on what I need to do for them. In fact, I was just thinking that this year I need to go down to Florida in December and start painting large pieces for the galleries in Florida in the South, even though they won't get busy until late January or February. But if I get down there in December, I'll have time to prepare for that. And it's a matter of making sure that you have what they need.
I love that you said that so many artists think, oh, I just need a gallery. Gallery needs to do this for me. And they don't think they think of it as it's a favor that the gallery is doing them, but you think of it as it should be, which is a business relationship that you two are dependent on one another.
Absolutely. It's a partnership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah, it's a partnership. It's a relationship and it's a partnership. And another important thing to realize that you have to think of your galleries as a partner. And if you do, you would never take a painting out of the gallery and sell it to someone when it was hanging on their wall. You would never do that. And if I were a gallery owner and I found out that you took a painting off my wall that I had paid rent on and sold it to a client without sending the client to me, I would feel that was a very bad act, a very disloyal act. And I've heard of stories where artists will be like, I don't know, they just kicked me out of the gallery. I'm thinking, well, maybe they found out, because gallery owners talk to each other, artists talk to each other. And you have to, above all, you have to be honest.
It's bad karma, just bad karma. And the other thing, sometimes when I send a lot of checks to a lot of people who help me in my business, and sometimes I get really annoyed writing their virtual checks, but also use my quote marks with my fingers. But then I think, wait, I'm helping someone make their living. Like I think of it, I have to do the reframe in my head and be like really happy to send money to people.
Yes, so, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's the same way. So what if, and I think you and I talked about this before, but I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this on the call. What if one of your clients or collectors sees one of your paintings at another gallery? So they're a customer of this gallery, but they see another painting at your gallery in Maine, or Florida. Yes. Yeah. What happens then?
That's a tough one, because that's actually happened to me. But what I do realize, and what I hope my gallery realizes, people move around today, and people go to Florida, they go to Maine, they live in Charlotte, and that happens. The only thing, it's not something that I can prevent. And it's not anything that I really don't, if I had a gallery that represented only me and sold no one else's work, then I wouldn't go to any other galleries.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So the gallery knows I have to have other galleries. I don't go to a gallery. I have one gallery in South Carolina, one gallery in North Carolina, one gallery in Maine, one gallery. I do have several galleries in Florida, but it's a big state, and that's a big part of my business.
It's up and down the East Coast.
I stay on the East Coast primarily. Yeah, I like to paint on the East Coast. I paint birds and beaches and scenery, landscapes. So that's what I like to do.
Denver is not your market.
I don't like heights.
There you go.
It's true. I need to be at sea level.
There you go. You live in a place called Marshville. So yeah, that says it all. Okay. I think there was some situation where you talked about where you said you would put your two galleries talking to one another, like you get out of it and let your gallery.
That's often the case. If a client of one gallery wants a painting from another gallery, I say, you guys have to handle that yourselves. Yeah, I'm out of it. And sometimes I get hurt with that and sometimes not, because sometimes a gallery doesn't want to do that, but that's up to them.
Okay, 8 galleries. It's a partnership. You replace paintings as fast as you can after they're sold. And cool. So you have the galleries. What are your other income streams?
I purchased real estate. Over the last 30 years, I've bought real estate.
Okay, that's not an income stream. That's income out.
It wasn't up until now. Actually, it wasn't up until now. Luckily, but that's now. I do some workshops. I don't do a lot because I have a big responsibility at the galleries. I do some teaching. I do some lectures.
But it's mostly and prints.
It's mostly originals. My
Right.
career transition to originals. But I have wholesale print sales and original print sale or retail print sales. I have wholesale art sales and I have retail art sales because I did the outdoor festivals. I do have my own client list of customers that found me at street fairs who still continue to purchase original paintings. So those are retail.
When you have them, you don't have them.
You have them. And then when you have it through a gallery, that's a wholesale art sale.
Yeah.
Original. So those are my 4 brackets, and then workshops.
But the majority of your income is from the paintings.
Is from original paintings.
And you paint so that you can buy real estate.
I do, yeah. You should kind of pay attention to things that you enjoy. For some reason, I've always had an interest in real estate. So I bought my first condo when I lived in Florida, or when I moved to Florida. I got married and thought, well, I think I'm just going to rent this condo out and keep it because the rent I collect will pay for the mortgage. And it'll be kind of a wash because you don't have a tenant for a while or whatever. So you get enough rent so that you can cover repairs or whatnot. So that for a long time. What happened? How did I buy my next property? I don't remember. But anyway, it's a wash because I wasn't making money on the real estate. Now there is a tax.
Investing.
I was investing, but there is a tax advantage when you own real estate. It's called depreciation. It does have a financial benefit, even if you don't actually make any cash on it, you don't make any money with it. You still are getting a financial benefit called depreciation. That comes it comes directly off of your income. So if I have a certain amount of depreciation on this condo, I can take it off of my net income for my taxes. That's how that works. So it's more involved than that. You have to do a Schedule C, a different tax thing. But it worked for me. So the first condo I bought. So then after that, I was driving around town. I was looking for a studio for myself, and I saw this little tiny rundown place in Florida, and it was a bargain. So I bought it. And then I moved into that, lived into that, still had the condo. Then when I got married and moved to North Carolina, I moved my mom down to the house, and then still had the condo for rent. And then I needed a studio in North Carolina. Again, there was a good deal on a building. So I bought it, used it as a studio. And then when I didn't need it anymore, I was able to rent that out. So again, the rental income paid for the expenses of the building, but it wasn't a moneymaker. Like you said, it was an investment at that time. So over the years, I've collected several pieces of real estate, and those for me right now, because the mortgages are paid off, this is 30 years later, I'm not under as much pressure to earn money from my painting, and it's given me more freedom for my painting. I can travel more. I can spend more money traveling. And that ends up working out anyway, because I travel and paint and I come back here and I sell the paintings and it pays for the trip anyway. So it's just given me a comfort level. So I struggled hard to do that.
Yeah. So I think it's important to say that you grew up without money.
Oh, not any. Yeah. I couldn't afford to go to school. I couldn't afford to go to college. I had to go at night to college. And I don't know if you want to hear this story, but I'll tell you anyway. Because I wanted to go to the University of Hartford Art School. They had a wonderful art department. I was in Connecticut, and it was my dream to go there. I was a senior in college. My mom had a 7th grade education.
Senior in high school? You were
senior in high school, yeah. Senior high school. Mom had a 7th grade education. Dad's not around. So I couldn't figure it out. Didn't know to go to counselors. My mom wouldn't even fill out financial information. So it was hopeless at that point to me. So I could not go to University of Hartford. I worked 2 jobs, and I went at night to go to college and majored in accounting and business management, because then everyone said, well, you don't want to go to art school anyway. You're not going to make any money in art. So anyway, fast forward, my nephew had a child right now it's about 21 years ago, but when he had the child, I said, I'm in Florida, you're Connecticut. I'll just start putting some money away for your son to go to college. I'm not going to buy him teddy bears and stuff. I'll be here. And when he's 18, just let me know. So I bought Walt Disney stock every month for him. And I completely forgot about it. It was taken out of my account. It was automatic. It was called a DRIP, dividend reinvestment plan. And every month the money was taken out. And I never thought anything about it. It was just automatic. And 18 years later, my nephew calls and he says, Aunt Mary, Emerson's ready to go to college. I'm like, that's so awesome. God, let me figure out. I have to figure out how to take money out of this account. It was Walt Disney stock, which was like it was very profitable. And I said, so where is he going to go to college? And he said, the University of Hartford.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, I just got chills.
Yeah. As a music major. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to cry too. Wow. And
it was so the right thing. It was just.
You sent him to school.
Yeah. I helped him go to school. Yeah. Which was really neat.
Holy cow. That is so cool. So you got a business degree.
I didn't get a degree. No, I
but
worked
you
4
studied
years
business.
part-time. I studied for business, accounting, and business management. Yes.
Okay.
And then
it served you well. You love business, don't you?
I really do. I love accounting even. That's one thing in my business. I have people help me do things. I have assistants and whatnot to help me now. But I always have a handle on the money. So that's something that I always take care of. I have an accountant, but I give him all the numbers. So I always know what's in the checkbooks. I always know what kind of inventory I've got, because there's a saying that if you take care of your money, it will take care of you. I'm not frivolous in any ways. I don't think I'm a spendthrift. I'm very generous with money, because that's another whole story. That always comes back. You have to be aware of financial doings and your obligations. And I had a friend say to me the other day, he said, oh, you've always liked that. And it's always been easy for you. And I thought, I remember sitting as a little kid at the supper table in tears because math was so hard for me. And I struggled with it. But one of the advantages I have in being an artist is that I'm really stubborn. I was not going to let it get me. I was going to figure out how to do it. So I figured it out. And I don't know whether that's, as an artist, is that rechanging part of your brain or what, but it was just, I knew it was important to be able to do it.
I think that's so admirable, because so many people tell themselves a story, like, I'm just not good at it. So they never learn it. And you thought, I'm just not good at it, so I better learn it.
So I have to work harder at it. Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, thanks.
Exactly. You don't depend on anyone. You have had other people in your life, but you totally can take care of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And you do. You make
very important. I take care of myself, but I also take care of other people too. And that's when you ask God, you just, God, please send me this money so that I can take care of this, and then I need to help somebody else too. So that always is part of my philosophy in life. I don't do it just for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I know we're going to get to more of that in just a second, but first of all, because I know that you not only went to night school to learn business, but you also have educated yourself by reading books, etc. And I know you have a whole list of books that you could share with us, but if you had just one book that you could recommend to people, a money book.
A money book for people, I would say, would be Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. It talks a lot about trying to stay out of debt, essentially. And debt right now is so harmful to people. They can't, when you are in debt, first of all, the weight of debt mentally is very, very heavy. There's a lightness when you do not have debt.
Yeah.
You have a lightness that I can't even begin to explain. So that's why I would say Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace, because he's totally anti-debt.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't have even let me borrow money for my houses, but which I did have mortgages. But again, I can say that because the mortgages are paid off now. I still have one, but the mortgages are primarily paid off. And it is just a lightness and a freedom that you can't imagine. So
I can't imagine. I mean, I still have a mortgage, but I can't imagine getting rid of debt because I have done that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So
yeah, it really is. Okay, so you tell us what because you work your ass off. Tell us what a typical day is, or a typical week is, if you're at home.
Whoa.
Is there such a thing? You told me yesterday you were cutting down trees.
That was yesterday morning, yes.
Yeah.
A typical day is, oh my God, first thing, I get up at 5:30 and I do stretching for a half an hour and I do yoga for a half an hour. That starts my day. And I'll have tea or coffee and they'll have some breakfast. Then I'll get out and I'll walk from the house to the studio, which is about a 5 or 10 minute walk. But I do a quick walk. And then I'll come in and get a little organized, and I'll walk back to the house and, I don't know, do something else. And then I usually will check emails mid-morning. I try to get set up behind the easel first, or a lot of times I'll actually go out and paint on a location out on the property here. And then I'll come in around 11, do emails, and for about an hour or so, then go get some lunch and go back and get into the studio easel. Now there's often Michelle, who works with me, is often here to do work around the property. So there might be an interruption there. Let's see. There's constantly things going on here.
Yeah. And so you have a little bit of a routine, but because you have this property, which we'll talk about in a minute, you have to, some things come up, I'm sure.
Things do come up. My ideal day is to do my exercise in the morning, walk to the studio, paint for an hour or two, then go outside, maybe pull some weeds or sweep the deck, or then come back in and paint a little bit more. And so it's a constant back and forth. If I'm behind the easel for a solid straight hours, it's usually at night. I'll get on a roll and I'll paint until midnight.
And then get up at 5:30?
No, not when I go to bed at midnight. I usually get up around 7.
Okay, good. Just like, I can't. How do you do that?
I would struggle with that.
Okay.
It's a very fluid schedule. I'm trying to be really disciplined about the exercise. So that's the 5:30 thing. So I went to bed like around 11:30 the other night and still got up at 5:30, and I dragged for a good part of the day because I was tired. So.
I know that you also have I don't know if you have a spiritual practice, but you're also very interested in you explore it. And
I have. It's a journey for each of us. There's a church in Marshville that I'm part of that I sing in the choir with, who I joined the church because they're just really wonderful people. It's a Methodist church. I could join any church if the people were right. And I read Thich Nhat Hanh and Khalil Gibran. So it's a very wide-ranging belief system.
You don't have a label for your.
I don't have a label. I'm a very spiritual person, but
imagine, because you're a plein air painter and you're outside a lot, I imagine there's a lot of spiritual.
There's a lot of church there. Going back to church, I really felt that was my church, to be outside with God, because to find the silence is to find God. And when you're out there and your feet are grounded, or you're like the time I told you, the first time I was full-time, I stood out on the beach barefoot in the sand and watched the sun come up and turn the waves pink. And I had such a feeling of rightness that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing at that moment and at that stage in my life. It was like there was some kind of spiritual confirmation that I had made the right decisions and that I was in the right place. So I'm doing the right thing.
Absolutely. I wish, I think we all look for that moment.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found it earlier. You also have a favorite quote that you have on your desktop, on your computer.
Oh, that Mary Oliver is a poet, and she asks, so tell me, what is it you plan to do with this one wild and wonderful day? Something like that. I think I paraphrased it.
Wild and Precious Life.
Yeah, one precious life. That's right. So
You could
tell me
translate.
what you plan to do. Tell me what you plan to do with this one wild and precious life. And it's on my screensaver. And when it pops up, I automatically think, and what am I going to do with this one wild and precious day?
Yeah.
So that's I don't like to waste a day. I think they're all so precious. And so life is so tenuous that you have to every single day be grateful for what you have and what you can do.
Yeah. I know you practice gratitude
All the time.
all
Yes.
the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's, beautiful. Okay. And so earlier you said that without the debt, and with the investments, you have attained a certain amount of freedom.
I have.
The freedom allows you to travel. You spend the summers in Maine. You travel. We just got back from France not too long ago, and you're able to do that. And you said with freedom comes responsibility.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And what I meant by that was you can't just, because you're free to do what you want, you really can't just do what you want, because you do have responsibility. I have responsibilities with my properties. I have people who work with me, and I have to be responsible to them to make sure that they're paid. And
You're responsible to your galleries.
Responsible to the galleries, absolutely. I do have to create. I can't just go and paint French paintings. That's not going to sell at all in my galleries. So I have to say, okay, I need to paint birds here because I need them for this gallery, and I need to get to the beach because I'm out of beach paintings at this gallery. So you have I have the freedom, but there is still the responsibility. Sometimes a greater responsibility. Sometimes I think, what if I just sold all the properties and I wouldn't have to worry about anything? Yeah. But I'm not going to do that. I can't do that because I made a vow.
You made a vow, and you also have during one of your trips, you had, I think it was a painting trip to the Huntington.
Yeah, no, I did the vow that I made is about the property, High Ridge Gardens. Yeah. And I had prior to that vow, I had spent a weekend at Huntington Beach State Park doing an outdoor festival. And I was surprised to find out that it was an artist who had donated the entire park to the state.
Anna Hyatt Huntington.
And she was a sculptress. Mm-hmm. And so that's the backdrop of this story, because I was amazed at that. And so I come home to North Carolina, and I have a 39-acre property in North Carolina, and it has my house, a guest house, and a studio on it. And I came home and went up on top of my hill, and the 130 acres behind me had been harvested. And what they mean by harvested, they cut down every single tree, and then they burnt the ground. So it was a charred ruins that I looked over sitting on top of my hill. And it was in the fall, and I knew that migration was beginning, and I thought, where are all of my birds that came to that 130 acres? Where are they going to go? And I love birds. I have all of my life. And I really sat there and cried. I was horrified that it happened. And that's when I made the vow. I sat there and I thought, if Anita Hyatt Huntington can do it, so can I. I'm going to leave this property.
When was that?
Must have been around 2008 or 2009. I don't exactly remember, but it has. Then what I did was I ended up going that winter. I put birdseed all along my property is adjacent to two sides of that 130 acres. So I put birdseed all along those sides. I put bird feeders, and I put watering stations. And now in the springtime, it is so loud here with bird song that you can't hear yourself think. I was on the phone one time with a customer service person for something, and this was last spring, I think, and I had the patio doors all open in the studio, so it's wide open. And I'm talking to this woman on the phone, and she pauses and she says, I hear birds. And I said, oh, I live on a bird sanctuary. And it was really wonderful. And there's so many times I have the property mowed and whatnot. I'll look out off my deck and I'll think, oh my God, this is like a park. I'm living in a park. And then I'm like, well, I am living in a park in the future.
But you got some special designation for it, right?
I did. And talk about paying attention. And I'll tell you that quote about paying attention. But somewhere I saw that North Carolina was building a birding trail. So I submitted our property to be registered on the North Carolina Birding Trail, and we are. So I have birders come to the property, and I have artists come to the property also. I have a pretty good sized guest house, and photographers come, and it's really wonderful. It's coming true. So it's coming to fruition. So
that's cool. So I do want to mention, and then we'll end with your quote, but I do want to mention your guest house that you just mentioned, that people can come stay there.
Yes, I've had artists come several times. It's actually a 3-bedroom. I've remodeled it, so it's in the middle of being 2 pieces. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath guest house, but it has a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment on the side also. And artists can come in. It's a donation. It's $20 a day if you wanted to donate to High Ridge, because I do need to build an endowment for High Ridge. Anna Hyatt Huntington was like a millionairess. I didn't know that when I made my vow. And I'm not, but
you will be when you sell all that property.
When I die, it'll actually be about half of what I need to keep the foundation going. So I actually need to, I have it's right now, it's at $5,000. That's what I have right now. And I've done that by having groups out here and making lunch for them. And or when people come and stay, actually one lady came and she was just over the top. One was so wonderful. She sketched the whole time she was here. She had the place to herself. I was actually out of town, and she left a $300 donation to the foundation. So that's really a cool thing. But we've got to build about a $1 million foundation to keep it going, and to keep the artwork in place, to keep the studio in place, and to keep the houses and the guest house in place.
That's just phenomenal. I love that you know your numbers. I love that people can come there and stay for $20 a night, which I would say, that's like, you can charge them 4 or 5 times that much. Well, but I know you don't want to do that. And if people can afford to, they can pay more. And it all goes into the endowment for this bird sanctuary and artists retreat.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Why don't you close with your quote?
Oh, the quote I was going to tell you was actually David LaFell. He was doing a talk in Sarasota one year, and I was lucky enough to be in the audience. And one of the students, he was wonderful with the Ringling students, and one of the students just looked at him and said, "So David, what's the secret to painting?" And he said, "Well, that's easy. It's the same as the secret to life." He said, "Pay attention." And that was so profound to me when I heard that quote. And I say that all the time. He also said another thing that I really enjoyed too. He said, someone said, "How did you get started?" He said, "I was started with the help of another artist." And so that's why you want to always help other artists. And so that was something that I thought was pretty profound also, to be a help to other artists. We're not competitors. We're actually allies. And we're all in this together. It's like a big family to me. So.
Yeah, I do know that because I've seen you with them. So I know that. I just want to say or ask one more thing about the pay attention quote. Why did that hit you? What did it mean to you?
I knew that to that point in my life, sometimes the littlest thing, like you see something and you're going to disregard it, and then you say, "Oh, let me pay attention to that." And it ends up being something big. And that's happened to me several times in life. And even you get a piece of mail and you toss it and you think, hey, let me look at this again. So really pay attention. And the little things, like being on the North Carolina Birding Trail. I have no idea why. I don't even remember how I found that out or why it struck a chord with me to register the property on the birding trail. So that was before I was even going to leave it. So
pay attention to opportunities, but also, I often tell artists, you'll find subject matter when you pay attention. Things just pop out. You find connections.
Don't go through life oblivious. Yeah, really pay attention. Pay attention to what's around you. And I'll be with someone and I'll say, "Oh, that was a red-winged blackbird," and they'll be like, "How did you even see that?" It's like, it's number one, it's a bird. So I'm going to pay attention to it because I love birds. But and in relationships, everything, pay attention to everything.
Thank you so much for listening to this encore episode of The Art Biz. If Mary's story resonated with you, I encourage you to take one small step to become more financially savvy in your art business. This could mean tracking your income more consistently, reviewing your expenses, setting aside savings for future investments, or simply getting more curious about your numbers. Whatever it is, take that one step that can build confidence and give you more freedom for future options. To read the show notes and leave a comment, visit artbizpodcast.com and look for episode 223. Find out more about Mary and see her art at maryericksonart.com. If you find value in listening to The Art Biz, I hope you'll share our podcast with other artists that might benefit from hearing it. And also, we always appreciate it when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thank you for allowing me into your artist's life.